Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Megan Thee Stallion, Megan. So the tricky thing about reviewing projects from Megan Thee Stallion is that eventually, once you're familiar with her formula, you start running out of things to say. She's an aggressive presence on the mic, and her flows and rapping have only gotten sharper and more creative with time. But outside of that specific environment, it gets a little shakier. She's a limited singer at best. Her more free-flowing emotional range can be kinda spotty. Her production and choice of guest features can be kinda hit and miss. I don't know, it's a frustrating feeling that she might just have a ceiling, often very good when you're tuned to her wavelength, just less consistently great. But the setup for this project did feel a little different, not only with the more raw vulnerability of Cobra, which I think is a highly underrated song, should have really been more of a hit, but also Hiss, setting off the war of the diss tracks across 2024, not only decisively beating Nicki Minaj, but also probably being in the top tier of said diss tracks this year. So yeah, I was pretty damn hyped for this album, especially as she was finally off of 1501, she could have a little bit more creative control over her career, and thus it leaves me in a bit of an odd place that when I say, wow, this is probably her best album, best project overall since Tina Snow, I still mostly feel the same about her as an artist. A refinement and a slight expansion on the formula, of which I'm very familiar at this point. So okay, let's handle the criticisms first. Whoever told her to try that wannabe Lizzo song Worthy has still not grasped that Meg's singing voice is very limited, and that sort of pop-rollic is not something she can credibly sell. I get trying to showcase more diversity, and it is a decent segue into the more introspective and excellent final two songs, Moody Girl and Cobra, where she does highlight how much the negative attention, the loneliness, the grief, the alcohol abuse, and even jealousy will take a toll on her, but that comes back to some sequencing on this project, which has been a persistent Meg Thee Stallion issue, and a thematic endpoint that has some deeper ramifications. For one, this album can start feeling like it hits all the same touch points of sex, being hot as hell, flexing on weak bitches regardless of gender, cussing out the jealous haters, and generally not enjoying herself nearly as much as you would hope, especially all the success, just hearing it over and over again. It's a weird contrast from where Meg can be so bubbly and excited about some stuff that she really likes off record, so when you hear less of that and you end the album with her most sad and depressing moments wrapped up in snake iconography that for all of the venom will also circle around healing and renewal, it just feels like a really downbeat ending where maybe all the introspection could have felt more effective just breaking up the flow across the album, cause some dramatic contrast. Now granted, she does venture more towards Japanese material and some weeb vibes on a couple of songs. They don't quite work for me. I'm not a big anime fan. Her Japanese sounds a little bit stilted, and Yuki Chiba comes across as really flat on Mamushi, but tonally, this album is locked into that pretty stock formula that works, but in some of this album's strongest moments, it's also really effective. Hiss is the sort of brutal opening album statement that sets the stage for a project that is locked and loaded with subs, where if she wanted to streamline this project down to a diss EP with Rattle and Figueroa just emptying more of the clip, it might actually wind up more effective than trying to play for a wider audience and market. I've seen some folks say that the album is trying to do too much for too many people, but I think the more apt and nuanced observation is that her focus is unevenly divided across what might pay off this variety better, especially as some of her limitations are still in view and still on the album. Now all that being said, when Meg gets a more interesting groove or the right co-star, she will deliver gold. The bounce and the sample flip on Boa has only grown on me. Take Keith ramps up the orchestral bombast with a Jeezy sample for Broke His Heart. It's damn near malevolent in its horniness, and that's kind of an interesting contrast to the glittery downstairs DJ. The second female masturbation rap song that stuck the landing this year for me after Rhapsody. Then you get the Tina Marie flip across B.A.S. That's pretty impressive, especially as K.R.I.T matches all the toxic energy of this bad relationship, and GloRilla continues to prove that she's Meg's best co-star and accent. They just have great chemistry. I also really appreciated when she dug into her southern flair. Like with all posthumous releases, I was a little skeptical of the late Pimp C's hook and verse provided by his widow for Meg on a vintage pimp anthem. Honestly, she gives it commemorative treatment, so I'm gonna go nice, but I think I prefer Big K.R.I.T's secret feature with the gleaming trap beat on Miami Blue. The production there is just terrific. But overall, You know, I keep thinking about the truly great Megan Thee Stallion album. It's close. That even with an established formula, there is another gear she can reach. And while this album is probably the closest to getting there, there's also a part of me that desperately hopes that all the haters fall into the background, or Meg just stops focusing on them as much, so her more joyful, silly, and introspective sides have the space to breathe and replace the increasingly stock clapbacks that might drag back the album. I really want to see her flex that artistic potential now that she has it. I like that her newfound independence appears to have given her the space for more regionalism and weirder horniness, even some of the weeb stuff. It's creating a more varied and potent picture of her as an artist and as a person. I want to see her pull it all together. She's real close, so it's really good, not quite great, but she's getting there. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, and subscribe. Longtime Meg Thee Stallion fans, I'm curious where y'all are going to fall on this from the maybe half a dozen of you who actually watch me. But beyond that, if there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if y'all want to get involved and help and support the channel beyond, like, you know, just leaving comments, maybe buying merch, the link to my Patreon is right over there, where again, supporting the channel, you can get albums on my schedule starting up this weekend, and hell, maybe just yell at me on my Discord in some fashion. Beyond that, it's not obligation, tough times, I understand, the options available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.